Welcome to the Chapter 10, Section 2 podcast, and this podcast is on cell division, and we're going to look more closely at what we discussed in the last section. So, we're going to divide cell division into two major stages. The first one is going to be the division of the cell nucleus, and this is called mitosis. And the second stage of the division is going to be the division of the cytoplasm, which we're going to call cytokinesis. So let's step back a second and remember that the genetic information that's passed on between organisms is called a chromosome. And before we can divide the cell, we have to copy or duplicate the chromosome, so each cell gets a copy of the genetic information. So each of the chromosomes is going to be two sister chromatids, and there's one chromatid, and here's the other chromatid. And the chromatids are held together by what's called a centromere. And we can't really see it here, but it's right there where the arrow's pointed. And that's where the chromatids are attached together. So what's going to happen is the chromatids are going to separate from each other during cell division. You can see here's one set of chromatids, here's another set of chromatids, and you're going to see this again later on when we look at meiosis. And each cell gets one chromatid of each pair. So what are the main events of the cell cycle? This diagram you should refer back to at some point after we're done with this, because this shows a cycle. The cell goes through a cycle, meaning it starts at one point. Pick a point on this cycle here, and it's going to go all the way around until the cell divides into two daughter cells, and then those two daughter cells are going to do the whole cycle again. So the cell cycle is really divided into two big parts: interphase, and that's this part right. Actually, here we go. This cycle right here. It involves G1S and the G2 phases. So during a cell cycle, a cell grows, prepares for division. It divides to form two daughter cells, each of which then becomes a cycle again, like I said. So here's the four phases again: the G1 phase, the S phase, the G2 phase, and the M phase, or mitosis and cytokinesis. We'll look at each of these phases in more depth here. So G1 phase, what happens then? The cell increases in size, it starts to grow, and it makes new proteins and organelles, as you would expect a cell that's growing. During the S phase, the chromosomes are replicated, and that's DNA synthesis. And then what's going to happen is it's getting itself ready for division by replicating its DNA. During the G2 phase, it starts to make organelles and molecules for cell division. And now we're ready for the M phase, or mitosis, or the mitotic phase. Let's look at the four phases of mitosis: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Once again, let's look at the whole overall picture again. We're now going to talk about mitosis, which is this part of the mitosis, and cytokinesis, which is this part of the cell cycle. We also know it as the M phase. And this is really where cell division occurs. Here's a picture of it. Prophase. During prophase, the first phase of mitosis, the centrioles, remember those, here they are right here, take up positions on opposite sides of the nucleus. And the centrioles lie in a region called the centrosome, which we're not going to spend too much time worrying about. And what they do is they organize the spindle. That's these red lines right here. It's a fan-like microtubules, remember those? And what they do is they help to separate the chromosomes. The chromatin, right here, remember we use the word chromatome, condenses into chromosomes. And the centrioles separate from each other, meaning they go to different sides of the cell, and the spindles form here. And lastly, the nuclear envelope here breaks down. So there's a lot going on during that phase. Here's a picture of it. You can see the chromosomes have condensed, so you can really see them. They're very purple. If you look at, it's hard to see another cell here, but if you were to see this other cell, it'd be a very light purple nucleus, and it'd be very hard to actually see the nucleus. In fact, I bet there's a nucleus right here, and it's just not condensed enough for you to see. Second phase of mitosis, metaphase. During the second phase of mitosis is metaphase. And in this, it's pretty simple. The chromosomes line up across the center of the cell. And here you can see they're all lined up across the center of the cell. Microtubules connect the centromere. Remember, that's the middle part that holds the cell together, holds the chromatids together. The microtubules connect to the centromere of each of the chromosomes. And then the microtubules connect to the poles of the spindle here. And here's a picture of it. You can see the chromosomes are all lined up in the center. You can see these lines, the blurry lines those are the microtubules going to the centrioles, which are roughly there and there. Anaphase. In anaphase, the third phase of mitosis, the sister chromatids separate into individual chromosomes. And then the chromosomes continue to move until they're put into two groups. So you can see one group forming here, another group forming here, and then moving away from the center of the cell towards the centrioles. You can see the here's one set, here's another set, and they're moving away from the center of the cell. In fact, you can even start to see how elongated the cell is. You can start to see it's going to pinch right here. Can't see it so much on this side, but you can see right here. You can start to see where the cell is going to separate. Oh, here's a nucleus right here that is not in prophase. It looks like it's in the middle of interphase, and you can see it's not very dark at all. Contrasted with this, where it's very dark. The chromosomes here, the chromatin hasn't condensed into chromosomes. Here you can see how it condensed. You can see how much more purple it is. The last phase is telophase of mitosis. This is the fourth and final phase of mitosis. The chromosomes gather at opposite ends of the cell, and they start to lose their distinct shape, meaning they start to become less condensed. They start to unwind, and they become harder to see under a microscope. And a new nuclear envelope forms around each cluster of chromosomes. And I was just reading an article the other day that suggests that the endoplasmic reticulum is what becomes a new nuclear envelope, but we can look into that later. And now you can see that the two sets of chromosomes have moved away from each other to opposite sides of the cell. And now that we're done with mitosis, let's look at the final part of the M phase, and that's cytokinesis. And during cytokinesis, the cytosome pinches in half, and you saw that on that other slide I showed you. It looked like it was starting to pinch, and now each daughter cell has an identical set of duplicate chromosomes. And a point to be made is that the original cell, half of that cell is in one of the daughter cells, half of the cell is in the other daughter cell. So it's difficult to say that the original cell still exists. It's been split in half. So it's hard to say which cell is the original cell. It really isn't. It's two kind of new cells that came from an old cell, from a pre-existing cell. And now that was in animal cells. In plants, we have a structure called the cell plate that forms between the two. And here you can see the cell plate, and that cell plate at some point is going to become the membrane, and then a cell wall is going to appear in the cell plate. And let's look here. Here's some onion root tip, and this is a pretty standard lab that's done where you actually can see mitosis occurring, or the whole cell cycle, and you can see there's a lot of cells here. I'm willing to bet that that's an interphase, and that's interphase, and that's interphase. Here you might have prophase right here, where the DNA is condensing, the chromosomes are condensing. Here we have probably metaphase right here. You can see the chromosomes lining up and starting to move away. This is probably anaphase right here. And you can see right here you have two cells. The chromosomes are still pretty condensed. You can see there's sort of a cell wall there, but it's hard to really see. That's probably telophase right there. So once again, here's the whole cycle again. This is probably interphase. I'm sorry, this is probably the end of telophase right here. Oh, it might be a new daughter cell. And you can see prophase, metaphase, metaphase here, anaphase as the chromosomes move away, telophase right here. You can see the pinching in of the cytoplasm. Here's probably the very end of telophase right here. And this is the cell cycle.